when you understand what our values are here at Insperity, it changes also the way that you interact with what you're doing. And so that's one of the things I love most about Insperity is that their values matched mine. I was reading, I told you I was going to tell you the story, so I was reading Simon Sinek at Christmas time, right after the book had come out. And a lady had told me when I was speaking to I was speaking to a corporate group, she took me aside and she said, I wish you wouldn't, I was very nice. You did a good job. It's hard to do. Keep all these managers and all these, upper division, executives paying attention. But you told a lot of education stories. This is when I first started my own business in 2009, going out there speaking full time. So you told a lot of education stories, and business people just don't relate to that. And you're about to speak to some developers coming up, and the reality is that when you speak to them, they're not going to relate to that. So I really need you to kind of change your approach and talk more about business. I came home. I told my wife I was devastated. I was like, oh my gosh, but that's who I am. That's what broke my heart. That's why I'm here today. That's why I'm standing in front of you. And all of a sudden, I was being told basically, it's not a good enough reason to speak about it, so you should probably stop doing it. Well, it was disingenuous of me to try to talk about corporate life when I didn't do it. And so it didn't make sense. I was trying to make good connections between what I did in education and to help students, and then turning around and asking them to treat each other similarly, so when you add value, you add value. It doesn't matter how old you are. So I thought to myself, okay, well, I better change my tune pretty quick because I'm about to speak for them. It was a big contract. So I was completely inauthentic. So I walked up there, but I did tell my first story about why I do what I do. I told that story at least because I wanted them to understand where I came from. So I tell that story about that young lady, about how I started my camp and why I actually speak. Goes okay. Talk a little about sales and things like that. And at the end of the day, I was with them for 3 hours. I go towards the break at lunchtime, and 2 different gentlemen came up to me and they said, I want you to come and speak to my company. There was like 600 franchises. I want you to come speak to my franchise. Okay. He goes, in particular, I want you to tell that story that you told about that young lady because I think self-image and the value of self-image and how my people see themselves is crucially important to their success. Because the more value they have, this is exactly what, the more value they have in themselves, the more they'll do more for my customers. And I want them to hear that story because I want them to value them like I value them. And sometimes they don't see themselves right. I actually see more potential in my people sometimes than they do. Now, this is a business owner talking to me. And I thought to myself, oh, okay, well, no problem. Yeah, I'd love to tell that story. I love that story. That's a good story. That's my life. I like it. I'm in. Then the other gentleman, he was from Canada. He took me aside and he said, I need you to come and speak to all my franchises. I have about 10 of them in Canada. I need you to be there for a couple of days because I want you to tell that story you told about that young lady because it's important to me that people understand the difference between engagement and disengagement. Because I at least made that point because I thought that was like pretty technical. Like if I could be real corporate, use a corporate word like engagement or disengagement, I felt like all proud of myself. And so anyway, because you don't talk about that in education. You don't talk about, is that student highly disengaged? Or are they actively sabotaging your class? You know, everybody says that. Anyway, so that's what he wanted. He wanted me to come and talk about that story and add value back into his people's lives. Now, no one else asked me to come and speak out of those other 28 people that were there. There was 30 of those people. But 2 of them did. And guess what? I still speak to those groups. This is 2009. I just got a call from the first person that came, and I'm going to be speaking to his group in about a couple of months. Why? Because we had very similar what?
Nice.
And we had very similar what?
Mm.
And we both were driven by the same thing. Not everybody is going to be your customer, but the ones that believe like you, the ones that value what you value, those are the ones that are going to be your customer, and they're going to be loyal. You can use every gimmick, you can use every trick. You can cut your price, you can do whatever you want, but the people that don't value what you value will never be in line with what you do. And if it breaks your heart and it breaks their heart, there's something that connects all of us to that point which drives us forward. It was a really good lesson, and I came home from that, and it didn't dawn on me until I read Simon Sinek's book, and I realized, whoop, that's what he was talking about. I have to stay true to my purpose. I have to stay true to my why. And the people that believe in my why will believe in it. And the people that don't, that's okay. They might think it's a good story. They might even like the fact that I was a teacher. But they just don't quite get why I do what I do. They're not going to be ever a good fit.